Superior, as long as I can remember, was a place where anyone that knew how to work hard could get a job. Because Magma Copper Company was always in need of good, hard work miners. And so they came here. Some of them stayed just a little bit because the mine was pretty hot in those days. And some of them just stayed here forever. The average lifespan of a miner in those days, and this was in the 50s, was about 50 to 55 years old. So he worked in the mine for a while, and tough work. And of course it was hot. That's why during the war years, I understand, they would come in here and work for 3 days. They couldn't stand the heat, and they'd go up and get their paycheck, and they were gone. Being a miner was kind of like being in the first string. Yeah. Miners in Superior had a little prestige. I wanted to be one of those guys.
And surface miners, they didn't have that?
So I went underground. Yeah. 3 weeks after I went underground, I became a miner. They made me a miner. In those days, you used to go in as a student miner. It just so happens that that one of the miners that was in that crew there quit. He drew his time, and he left me in there as a miner. So, but it was a special privilege to be among the miners. Some of the best known, best well-liked people that I have in my life were miners. Good people. In those days, when there was a mining accident, my father was a foreman, so the smelter was going on, and it had a siren. And when the siren went off, it was kind of a special one, a special siren, different from a fire in town. And so I always knew when that happened, because my dad used to get up and he'd run up to the main office because something was critically wrong. And so that was always a kind of a bad time in a mining town, when we had accidents. And as long as there's mines, there's bound to be accidents.
I always wanted to be a miner. When I was a kid, we lived over in Pinal Street. And I used to sit there in 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and, when the miners would go by and with their lunch pockets, there was no cars those days. Well, this was 45, 46, 47. And I used to say, well, one of these days I'm going to go up there with a lunch pocket. When we was going to school, we used to end up at the clubs, or we would end up in front of the drugstore. I don't know if any of the guys Manny didn't tell you?
No.
Yeah, we'd go down at the drugstore. It was a drugstore, where the stop sign is, huh? Mm-hmm. Where the Magma. I can't remember the name, so don't expect me to give you the name. There was a drugstore on that side, and there was a drugstore on the opposite side. And we used to spend our time on the north side. That's going up the mine, huh? And we used to hang there on the pipes and talk with one another and run around and hit one another and stuff like that. But they were all school students. And we used to come out of practice from football, and we used to hang around there. The whole bunch, all the class, they were all there. So we used to have a lot of fun when we was kids. They shut the mine down in '82, but I stayed working. I was one of the lucky ones, and we had to dewater we had to pull the pumps out. Number 9, number 3, and all that. And so from '82 to '87, that's what we did, trying to shut the mine down. We didn't want to, but we had to. But mining it's a beautiful experience, I think.
During the war years, Magma had Model A's. They didn't have any equipment. The only truck they had was a 36 Ford ton and a half. That's the only truck they had. All the rest of them were Model A's, and I think they had one 37 Ford pickup. That Frenchie was a messenger. That he got the powder with a little flat rack. He'd go get the powder, and they weren't using that much powder. When the mine shut down, I was hauling. We used 55,000 pounds of powder a week, one big truckload, and sometimes the old magazine is still down there behind. The Kayla's up there, the old cement. That was built in 1923. And we were using, when I first got on that truck, Bud Tomlin was on it, and for that first strike, he opened a station over in Samuel, and I got his job on it. I was hauling explosives, and I haul all the steel that was fabricated at a smelter up here to the mine until they moved everything up to 9. This town will survive. It survived under everybody thought the town was going to be a ghost town, but no, it's not. You've got too many people like me that lives here, born and raised here, and you're going to be a retirement community eventually. And I think myself, and then if you guys go ahead with your deal, it's going to help here. It'll bring probably, if 4,000 people, it'll probably bring 12 to 1,300 people in here if we get housing for them. That's the main thing. We've got to get some decent housing in here and clean this town up. The town is too filthy.
Well, just a little beyond that restaurant where there's no homes at all when I was born. The cactus all over the place. There was no St. Mary's Center, no high school. Well, they just built that high school just recently, but there was nothing back there, not a thing. And way back there, we used to have no electricity, just kerosene lamps, and wooden stoves, 1932, 33, 34, all through there. I don't recollect whenever that electricity came in. It must have been in the early 40s or late 30s, something, I guess. I don't recall just now. But our dad, those apple boxes where the apple used to come in boxes, he used to put two slats on the bottom, nail the heck out of it, and then put a little wheel on the front, and then put some slats on the side. Okay, kids, go pick up firewood.